Hey, I'm Dr. F Scott Feil, host of the HET podcast, sponsored by NPTE Final Frontier. If you're a student about to take the NPTE or a professor who teaches students about to take that exam, then the NPTE Final Frontier is your place to be. I wish that the NPTE Final Frontier existed back when I took the exam because I know that that resource would have made things go a lot smoother for me. Check out npteff.com or npteff on all socials for all things NPTE Final Frontier. And enter the code HET on your checkout for a discount. Now let's get into the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. F. Scott Feil, and I've got with me longtime friend and somebody who I'm excited for their journey, Dr. Kaitlin Lutz. How the heck are you, Kaitlin?
Hello, hello. I am good. It's been a busy season, but when is it not?
Yeah, yeah. That's the world of healthcare academia, right?
Yes,
We stay busy. We know how to do that very well.
yes. How are you?
I about the same. Just keeping the head above float and making sure that the eyes are straight ahead and we're focused on the vision and the mission and trying to learn every single day.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is great because tonight's topic is kind of one that is near and dear to my heart, and that's really failing forward. We've had
yeah,
some failure episodes in the past. We've talked about, normalizing failure and how it's a learning process and it's
yeah,
actually okay to
yeah,
fail. And so that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And Kaitlin was kind enough to
yeah.
present for our Metacognition of Leadership Institute group, our Molly group, on a book by Amy Edmondson, which to me it was eye opening because I felt seen and heard at the same time, but also it was a
Mhm.
little bit scary because I was like, oh wow, failing is more normal than people know, and it needs to be brought out there. So the book is called The Right Kind of Wrong. And Kaitlin, why don't you
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about your summary of the book and what you kind of gained from it?
yeah. Um, you know, I kind of self-label and identify as a people pleaser and perfectionist. I think a lot of people that go into healthcare and higher level of education can kind of check those boxes to a certain degree. And when I began my journey on kind of starting my PhD and really digging deeper into growing as a human with that, I stumbled into Amy Edmondson's work and sort of this concept of calling out failure and that it is a sign of a healthy culture and environment. And the book really discusses that, and that instead of shaming or sort of finger wagging at failure, we really need to be creating support systems and structures that allow people to feel safe to discuss their failures and grow from it. And I thought that that is such a beautiful concept, especially in our world. And again, we're not necessarily on the same um, stressors as, say, like a surgeon in the OR, but certainly we work with patients that have a varying level of complexity and need. And oftentimes, I think, especially new grads coming out, um, there's that sort of extra layer of guilt or shame of like, well, maybe I don't know, or maybe I shouldn't ask or question about what I'm seeing or doing or participating in this care, and it's very much the opposite. A healthy work environment, a healthy perspective on failure is to admit it, to show up for it, to learn and reflect on it, and to grow. And that book does a great job of describing both research side, evidence-based side of it, but also some good take homes and some things to do as a person wanting to implement those ideas.
Yeah, there were two major themes that I kind of took away that I personally connected with. The first one being that safe space that you talked about, right? Like creating a
Yeah.
safe space to fail. And I think, or at least I like to think, that especially in the classroom, I like to do a
Mm,
really good job of making my students feel like, hey, this is a safe place. If any
yeah.
real learning is going to happen, failure is part of that, and that's okay. This is the place to
Absolutely.
do it, right? Because if you fail here, it's fine. We talk about it, we learn from it, we get
100%.
better, we grow, right? But then when you get out into the real world, the hope is that you're more prepared because you did learn and you did fail along the way and you made the mistakes, you
Yep.
corrected them, you course corrected, and you got better for it, right? So creating that safe space was one of the big themes, and the second theme that I felt like I was doing a mediocre job in was saying no. No,
Mm,
period, is a
yeah.
perfectly acceptable answer. And like you said, like people pleasing is a big thing, and saying yes to everything and taking on all the projects
Yeah.
is a big theme I find in academia a lot. And it
Mhm.
took me many, many years to realize it's okay to say no to things,
Yeah.
especially when you're focusing on a North Star and a progression that you're trying to work towards. You have a goal, you
Yeah.
have a vision, you have this idea in mind of what you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes that's going to mean saying no to opportunities, even really good opportunities.
Yeah, and that I think is a lesson across like all aspects of life. That is a hard one to learn, and that you kind of have to. I don't remember who it was. I had a mentor a while back that really highlighted, um, you can't have multiple priorities. You can just have one. And I don't know that that fully sank in until recently.
Yeah.
And now, sort of going all in on one concept, I get it. Like you do really have to be okay with sort of declining other opportunities or other options to partake in things that sound really great and exciting and amazing. Um, but not if they're not towards your priority and your one singular goal that you're focusing on at the time.
Yeah, I think, we just talked about this a couple weeks ago in Mali as well, and that was we like to think we can multitask, right? And in reality, when we do that, we're just kind of shifting our priorities, our mental priorities from one task to
Yeah.
another. And there's still some residual left over when we leave a task and go to the next and then try to come
Yeah.
back. Or, you're spreading your mental capacity very thin when you do that. So
Yeah.
it's not really multitasking. It's just, switching and diverting our attention to different things. And if we
Yeah.
scale out to a bigger picture of that, right, like a life view of that, like you said, the word priority means putting things in front of another thing, right? Like literally making the more important thing first and then coming down the list and deprioritizing as you go. So, priorities become a big part of our life. And when you do that, you have to put the right things in the right priority in the right order in order to really make it work and be successful.
Yeah.
So tell me this. Let me ask you this. If we're going to, say that failure is okay, it's
Mhm.
part of the learning process, right? What does that look like to you? Because I know one of the things that I kind of struggled with is I never go into something wanting to fail or expecting to fail. However, my process has become okay with when it happens, recognizing it, and then
Yeah.
trying to do something about it. So how do you handle failure? How do you view failure?
So I think just to give a quick history on how I've handled failure in the past, maybe. It was not good. A lot of times,
Yeah.
like I'd be really upset at myself, upset at the situation, and sort of at a loss of what could have gone differently. And frequently I was not reflecting on the moment or at the encounter. It was just sort of an emotional response and then moving forward and saying well, we've got to keep moving. Um and then I think really this past year or 2 years, I kind of settled into saying okay, we've got to pull some other ideas and concepts here because this is no longer serving me, right? Um and being in my PhD program, I think really shifted my mindset on that too. And encountering a lot of research that quote unquote failed, but truly was just part of the process of getting to the right answers. And so what I started doing, and it sounds really silly, but it really made a big mind shift difference, was sort of creating null hypotheses for my life
Yeah.
and being like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, what I think this is going to happen. Like I think I'm not going to get the job and I'm going to be stuck continuing to do what I want to do, and that's okay. Or, I'm not going to get voted or selected for this opportunity on the board, and that's okay. And like, I'm going to instead dedicate my time to finishing this book series that's been collecting dust on my shelves. Or, and doing that, I think, one, gave me gratitude for when something did happen. Because I was like, oh, okay, like I really put in the thought and effort into where I gained something, but also really made me kind of revisit what I was losing, almost, of like having a sense that there's um it's not the only thing I had going on in my life. And so maybe it wasn't as make or break. Now, I will say, like, on some of those bigger ones where it's like you're definitely putting more risk in, you're putting a lot of effort and foot forward. Those are a little tougher. But I also think those are the moments now. Frequently, I will sit down and journal and say, okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And sometimes, genuinely, you go through and you realize I just wasn't the right person at the right time for this. And I put my best foot forward. I put together a really great, coursework for students. Like I've had sometimes like, courses that just went like sideways where you're like, okay, what what happened in today's lecture that I missed the memo on? And it's the same thing for, when you're creating activities or interventions for clients and patients, where you're like, okay, I really thought this was going to be a winner and it totally sank. And sometimes you're like, okay, that just wasn't the right way for that person or that class. And that's something I've had to grow in as well, is accepting that sometimes even my best isn't what's right at that time.
Yeah, there's so many good takeaways from what you just said. I think the first one that I hope people will write down seriously is create null hypotheses for life, you know? Because that really is a simple way to look at it. Like, all right, I have this thing, and we talk about this when we talk about like quantum decision making, right? Like
Yeah.
having something you have to do, a task you have to perform, or a goal you're shooting for, right? Creating four very different possible ways to get there and do it, playing them out from start to finish, and then prioritizing them in best choice to worst choice, and then picking the
Yeah.
first one and going for it, right? And if that doesn't work, you're not too worried because you have B, C, and D lined up and ready to go, right? It's just a pivot or a
Yeah.
course correct
Yeah.
to come back to the next option, right? So that's the first one. I think the second one too that's really big, and we'll touch on this in a minute, but reflection, right? That
Mhm.
is a huge portion of the failure process, right? Like the word fail has such a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
I don't. I think if we really look at like the root word and like what it means and what it could become, that's where it comes from, right? But if we look at it as fail equals first attempt in learning, and you just look at every new thing you're learning as, hey, I'm coming into this as a novice. I know I'm not going to be an expert, but I'm going to put in the time and effort and energy to work on it and get better as we
Right.
go. Then you can,
Yeah.
again, I don't go into something expecting to fail, but I just know I'm not going to be as good at it as I would be the 100th time I do
Yeah.
it, right? So I
Yep.
think
Yep.
reflection becomes a big one. So let's talk about this. You go into some new opportunity, some new, learning situation, and you fail, right? What do you do? What are the steps then to then get better, to learn from it and get better, right? Learn from our mistakes and get better.
Yeah.
Hey guys, real quick. If you're in the healthcare field as a student or a professor or even a clinician and you have student loans and you haven't checked out Varela Financial yet, what are you even doing? Varela Financial is a company that takes you through an individualized process to your financial planning and eventual financial success and freedom. PTs are going through a tough time right now due to the debt to income ratio, and student loans are the number one issue that we're facing. Go to varelafinancial.com to book a free call to see if they can help you. All right, back to the show.
Yeah. So just like learning in general, I think learning from failure comes in different shapes and sizes for individuals. And I've worked with students on this too, because some find the journaling process really boring or really like,
Yeah,
it just
guilty.
doesn't, I can't sit, I don't want to, can't translate the thoughts into paper. And that is valid. I think for me, it works just because I very much was that kid growing up that was like, Dear Diary, like furiously writing everything about my day. Um, that works for my brain.
Well, I in
But I
in my
will,
in my defense, ironically, I was an English major, right? So you would think
yeah,
I like writing and journaling, but I hate it. So what I've had to do, literally, my journaling process now is just two or three things I'm grateful for, right?
yeah,
Gratitude journaling, and then the two or three big rocks I have to move for that day. So like a little
yeah.
to-do list to myself, front and
And
center.
that's
These are the big
perfect.
ones. And that's it. That's my
Yeah,
whole journaling process. Some
yeah.
like to do more, some are the Dear Diary folks, some like to do less, but that's about all I can do for journaling. So,
Yeah. No, and I think that's very valid. And that's why I tell my students, like, you have to be honest with the process because otherwise it's not going to be um, something you can do forever, right? It's not going to be long term. And that's what we want. We want something that you can carry with you moving forward through your career as a human. And so sometimes what I have found is, the journaling works for some. Some need to talk it out loud and they just need their partner or peer to be a sounding board. And I tell them, set a timer for 10 minutes. You get 10 minutes to just word vomit, like how you felt about it, what you feel like you did right emotionally, like maybe get out some of those like bigger feelings about the moment. And then once that timer goes off, I tell them, and then you have to sit in silence while your friend like kind of goes back and reflects back on you, what they've heard, what they thought about it, what they got from the moment. I always think it's really helpful when the peer or spouse or partner, person that you're bringing into this isn't necessarily super close to it, because then it's sort of like telephone. And
yeah.
it's like, okay, well, I heard this. Was this really the big important part, or was this the part that just stung? It sounds like maybe this person was really great at this, but really struggled to understand this part, or you did great here. And so that can be really good for people that like that communication and just need to get it all out. Um, the other one that I've had some really great success with some students as well as peers is we are in PT at least very kinesthetic learners. And so oftentimes I will tell them, go do a workout, go hit the gym, go run, go do a yoga flow, do something that moves your body and kind of think through what happened. Like think through the processes as you're lifting those weights and carefully putting them back on the ground and not letting them break the floor.
Right.
uh, unless there's adequate padding and then slam away. Or, go for a walk outside and go take your dog for a walk, go move your body and just kind of allow that to be your process. Is almost like a meditative movement. Um, and then come back and maybe write down the top like 5 things. And I always tell people like you at some point you do have to put a little pen to paper, but it doesn't have to be near as much, right? So like it can be like you mentioned, just like bullet point items of like, okay, here's what I did right, here's what I did wrong, here's what I'm not doing again, here's what I definitely need to do again. And I think that's just something that we as humans can then hold on to a little bit better. Research has really shown writing things down, even comparative to typing and all of that, as much as we chagrin sometimes about it, uh, the memory on that holds better. And so I think having, even if it is a stapled like 10 pieces of paper folded together, like little something you can just put your thoughts into, and really going through the motion of writing it down um, helps. And I will say, like, I've had a lot of students that I've worked with or peers that I've worked with on this that have said, yeah, that made me really realize I kept falling into the same trap. I kept taking that same, left swerve when I should have just kept going straight, and putting some of those pieces together.
Yeah, I mean, I love writing things out. I love creating lists and crossing things off when I accomplish them. I used to carry a moleskin pad, a little one, in my
Yeah.
front scrub pocket. And I still do to this day, but it's a little different because I use my phone a lot now for notes.
Yeah.
And even though I do that, I still like that pad because I always have it, in my pocket or in my bag, and I know where it
Yeah.
is, and I can just quick pull it out and jot down some quick
Yeah.
notes or thoughts or ideas I had. But I like the idea of kind of, working out through it. And because normally
Mm-hmm.
I'm passively learning when I'm out walking or, working out,
Right.
and I'm
Right.
listening to a podcast or I'm consuming, when really I
Yeah.
should probably be processing and getting out some of the emotion and
Yeah.
the because
And I will
we
say,
know exercise is a benefit, right? So it
yes,
makes
yes.
sense.
And I will say, like, it feels weird sometimes the first one or two times you do it. Like, not, I tell people, I'm like, it doesn't have to be a normal workout, but 10, 15 minutes of just moving your body with silence, where it is you and your brain and nobody else in the conversation except whatever voices that are giving their opinions from, past people in your life, maybe weighing in. But really allowing your body and brain to kind of connect on what in your gut felt like, this really hit home. This really missed the mark. I thought I really crushed it on this. And then allowing sort of that logical edge to cut through and say, okay, what of that really did, crush
Yeah.
it? What did I really do great on? Um, and kind of also taking, and then especially if you're outside, in Oklahoma right now, I would not recommend. It's super high cedar season. Everyone is
Yeah,
like
we have it here too.
dying in allergies. Yep. Yep. But there is something very grounding about that process.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love going outside. My kids and I, will go for a walk every day, and it's been great until recently when cedar season started. I've never had allergies in my
It's so
life,
bad.
and now I do. Cedar season gets me every year. But what
Yeah.
would you say? What kind of advice would you give to somebody like a new grad just getting out, or somebody starting their first job, or somebody maybe who's been doing it for years but is changing settings or something like that? What would you say to approach failure to somebody who is starting in something new?
I would say see it as a friend, right? It's a part of the ride. And it's gonna happen. Like, as much as we want to be like, no, I can't, like, I won't let it happen. It can't happen. Like, it's going to happen. Something's going to slip up. There's going to be a mistake. There's going to be a miscommunication, something. Um, and that's okay. But, like, to sort of create a relationship with it, and to say, like, okay, me and failure, we're going to go through this. And I also think it's good to see, like, it's going to get smaller, right? It's like what is it, the life of Benjamin Button or whatever, where he goes from older to younger.
Yeah, yeah,
Failure kind of works that way, in the sense that I think we are so good about creating these giant, like, scary, anxiety riddled things of monstrous size, when we think about what failure looks like or feels like. And the reality oftentimes, now, of course, I want to hedge my bets here. There's going to be one in a blue moon that's like, yep, that was real bad. Um, but generally speaking, it's like, oh, I forgot to, update the auth on the chart. Yep, that was a bummer, but, like, we're okay. I'll know for next time. I'll reflect on it. I'll get a better system, move forward. Okay, I really did not do well on that exam. And if you're still in school, and what about that? Maybe did I mess up, and how to reflect on that process. But usually, that's okay, I can circle back, make better use of the rest of my time for the semester, and kind of come back from it. As a new grad, I think the other thing with that is don't be afraid to lean on others. Don't be afraid to reach out to peers and those who are also and if you're starting in a new setting too, I think it's
Yeah.
very similar, right? Um, is we know that there are a million ways to treat a patient, and the more ways you learn, the more tools you have in your tool belt, the better you're going to feel adept at jumping in and just going. And so I always tell, especially like students when I'm their CI, is like, hey, like you are supposed to not know things. If you knew everything I knew, you would not be here. My job would be moot. Like
Yeah.
this would not even be part of your education. And so I think that really opens the door for the conversation of saying, like, okay, so let's talk then about like where the gap is in knowledge and how we can try to bridge it. And I do that for our when we have a mentorship program at my actual like clinical job, and that's part of it as well. Is okay, how do we bridge the gap between what school taught you and what like boots on the ground clinical you're going to need. And we do that not only just with new grads, but those who are transitioning from other um, settings as well, because it is different. And I give mass kudos to people who decide to do that and change up where they're at, because it is scary. And it can feel really heavy coming from, especially if you've been practicing for a while. That sense of failure, I think, really
Yeah.
comes back because you're like, oh God, it's like jumping back to that first rotation. And because I remember that first rotation, I was like, as long as they don't ask me anything about the hand, it's going to be great. And then like our second or third patient that day for an eval was a wrist fracture, and I was like, okay, I have to go like study all night, and tomorrow like
Yeah.
I'll be ready, and like fingers crossed.
That's funny.
um
I actually, when I transitioned from the clinical world to academia, I was forewarned by many that it was a drastic change. It is completely different. It's a career change. It
mm,
is night and day. And yet, my first semester, I was still overwhelmed and struggled to learn
yeah,
how to be an academician, how to teach, right? So,
yeah.
and I had an EDD at the time. I just thought, oh, I can just show up and teach, right? And that's not the
Yeah,
case. It takes a lot, and there's a lot more to it than just the teaching aspect. And there's administrative stuff and service and research,
absolutely.
and there's things that you just don't even think about. So
Yeah,
it was a learning curve and a steep one. But after that first semester, I took my lumps and I got better. And sure enough, years later, I'm pretty decent at it, right? So
right.
it does take time. You have to give yourself grace. And I don't think
100%.
really we should be going at anything alone, whether it's
No, yeah,
schoolwork or whether it's a new job or whether it's business and entrepreneurship, right? We're
yeah,
humans. We're meant to be communal people that interact with others and look for guidance and advice and ask questions and learn from each other.
yeah,
So find that tribe, find that group of people that are going to help you, because
100%.
going at it alone ain't it. I promise. I've tried.
No.
It's not the way, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think also, like you mentioned in there, like you kind of took your lumps, you did your work. Like I always tell people, just like our patients, just like when we think about exercise prescription, like you put in the reps and you're going to see progress. And sometimes those reps look really sad or look really
Yeah.
like not what you thought they were going to. And that's okay. Those are all still contributing towards, that neural pathway development.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I really do want to tell people that it's okay to fail and give yourself
Mhm.
grace. Like, we're human,
Yeah.
right? And we're not
Yeah.
expected to know it all. We're just not, right? Especially nowadays
No.
in the information age between Google and AI, it's all at our fingertips. So we can look
Yeah.
things up. We can go to other references and resources. We can go to our colleagues and ask questions. Like, I have no problem telling a patient or a student, I don't know, but I know who does. Let me go research, talk with them,
Exactly.
and I'll get back to you with the right answer.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's part of being human and part of learning and growing. And then next time
Yeah.
somebody asks you the same question, hopefully you got it that time. So
Yeah.
it is a process, and I think as long as you commit to that lifelong learning and trying to improve yourself and get better along the journey of becoming an expert and authority in whatever it is that lights you up and whatever you're passionate about, right? That
Yeah.
journey, even if you don't become the Michael Jordan of that thing, you're going to get pretty darn good along that journey. If you embrace it and really
Yeah.
learn from it and commit to the reflection process and getting better and not making the same mistake over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and I've had a few students I've worked with that, ask like, well, if I fail at this and I learn like the some cost of getting better or doing the thing isn't what I feel like is worth it, like, is that okay? And I was like, absolutely. Like maybe that was your reflection from your failure was like, I thought I did my best. I put in a ton of effort. This didn't go my way. I now know how much more effort it's going to take. And I know sort of now more clear picture what that final product or project's going to look like. And I don't know that I want it. And I think that's
Yeah.
sort of part of that sunk time fallacy, right? Of like, oh, I put in all this time, I put in all this effort, I put in all this money. Like, whoo, like, I guess I just have to keep going. I'm like, no, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to say
Yeah.
the reflection from the failure was, this isn't for me.
Yeah, and that's self-awareness, right? That's part of knowing,
Mhm.
do I have what it takes and do I really want to pursue and get better, or do I need to pivot and go a different
Yeah.
direction, right? So, well, Caitlin, I can't
Yeah.
thank you enough for taking the time and for coming on to talk to our audience about failure and the
Oh, of
process and how to get better
course.
at it. We ask all of our guests this one final question, and that question is, if you could change one
Mhm.
aspect of higher education, whether it be DPT or otherwise, what aspect would you
Ooh.
change and how would you change it?
That's a really great question. Um, Gosh, I gotta like think for a second here. Okay. I have to like rifle through all the different things that I've always thought could be better. In the best of ways. I think for me, going through graduate school now a second time, voluntarily, I think that there is just such right, self-masochistic here. Like I don't know why. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think that there's such a weight placed on exams and sort of this knowledge performance aspect, which I validate there's not many better ways of performing. But I wish that there was sort of this more tiered um, coffee chat approach where we could have more conversations in, you know, around round tables and around um you know good food and just having a more relaxed environment to really engage with learners sometimes about material, because I've found that frequently that is when some of the best learning really like takes place. um, and I think that can happen with hands-on learning as well. I think, having patients and volunteers coming into spaces to be available for students to practice skills, but also to learn and see life through that patient's eyes is really eye-opening because it's very theoretical. As much as our job is very hands-on, oftentimes the classroom feels very theoretical,
yeah,
which I think is why we come up with that coined phrase of, well, it depends,
yeah,
for a lot of our responses to students because we don't have that individual in front of us. And I think if we could create more casual learning opportunities, I'm going to call it, uh, I think that would be really a wonderful experience for students to get a better grasp of what applied concepts look like as they're
yeah,
going down. And that is for not just grad school, not just PT school.
yeah,
That's for everywhere. I really think it's something that is, trade schools do really well. They do a lot more of engaging students sometimes in that aspect, um, functionally because they have to. But I think that
yeah.
is something that we could maybe take and apply a little bit.
Yeah, almost like a scaffolded apprenticeship, where you can just kind of chat and ask questions and hang out. So again, I was an English major before I was a PT, right? And one of
Yeah.
the English courses that I took was some sort of like Russian literature course or something like that.
Mm,
And we only read two books the entire semester, but one of them was War and Peace.
yeah.
And I would not recommend it. It was a
It's a beast.
dense book. It is
Yeah.
ginormous. It's like a phone book, right? It is awful. But I will say the professor that we had was the oldest professor in the English department. He had to be 80 years old. He was doing it, I think, it was emeritus
Wow.
status or whatever it is, and had been doing it
Yeah.
forever.
Yep.
And
Just
the
loved
way
it.
he taught War and Peace, yeah, it was a love of his, and he loved the content, and that was the only course he taught still. And the way he taught War and Peace was he actually had us over to his house and served tea and biscuits, right? He called them
Yeah.
cookies and stuff to the class, and we just chatted about the book. And
Yeah.
it was probably some of the best learning that I ever did at Wake Forest there, and I look back at that course a lot because it was we just sat in his living room around a big circle. There were only 8 or 10 of us in the class, and we just
Yep.
talked, and he told us life stories and then kind of interwove them within the book and what was going on, and what Tolstoy was trying to get across and what he was talking
Yeah.
about. And I really I didn't want to take the course. I needed another course at that level, and that was the only one
Right.
available. So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be brutal." But I still, to this day, look back on it as one of my favorite courses and some of the best learning that I did. So I would
Yeah.
love to see more of that. You're talking to somebody who's not a fan of grades, right? So
Yeah.
I get it. Um, but I guess
Like
I
I said,
kind
I
of
know, like, the principle of like showing knowledge
sure,
learned
yeah. We
and
need
all of
to
that. You have
assess,
to,
right? We
yes.
need to assess
But
for safety
I think
at the
there's,
very least, right?
yes, yes, yeah. But I think there's just so many more creative ways we can influence how we're teaching
Yeah,
and engaging learners these days, especially these days,
yeah,
and gaining that in-person attention.
yeah,
That I think this is something I've seen and just had uh, had some good experiences with as well, like at both as a student and as a teacher. It just really, I think there's just a light switch that turns on for people when they get to go, okay, like I get to just like come here and hang out and participate. And that's like part of this. Now, you still have to come prepared to talk, you still have to come prepared like with your learning. But I
right.
think it makes it way more cool when you get to say, hey, we're just gonna like talk about this and get real and like we're gonna put sort of the grades in a box for just a second and just really get into it. Like I want to hear your thoughts, and it's okay if you thought it was terrible. Like it's okay if you thought this
Yeah,
was like way out of left field.
yeah, I love that. Well, Caitlin, thank you again for your time and for coming on here. Where can people reach out to you or find you or follow you on the interwebs if they have more questions or just want to see what you're up to these days?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not super active these days on social media because I am in my like final dissertation stages. But you can absolutely always reach out to me at Eat Pray Lutz on Instagram. I am also on LinkedIn or Facebook as Kaitlin Lutz. And then certainly people are always welcome to email me at CaitlinPLutz at gmail.com should they have any questions regarding higher education, PT, pediatrics, pediatric pelvic health, or just life.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes so that you're easy to find. But again, Caitlin, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I can't wait to see what your future holds.
Oh, thanks. It was great being here.